The mining colony on planet Hope had been digging for 6 months without finding anything special. The red dirt and gray rocks looked the same every day. Workers complained about the heat, the long hours, and the boring routine. Nobody expected their lives to change forever on that Tuesday morning. Jake Williams wiped sweat from his forehead as he operated the massive drill. His partner Kesha stood nearby, watching the computer screens that showed what lay beneath the surface. They had been working together for 3 years and nothing ever surprised them anymore. "Hey Jake, look at this," Kesha called out, pointing at her screen. The readings showed something different. Something that made no sense. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked, walking over to see the strange patterns on the monitor. The drill hit something hard. Really hard. But it's not metal or rock. It's giving off some kind of energy. Jake frowned. In all his years of mining he had never seen readings like these. The numbers kept changing, almost like the object underground was alive. But that was impossible, right? They called their supervisor, Tony, who came running with his coffee still steaming in his hand. When he saw the readings his face went pale. "Stop the drill," Tony ordered. "We need to dig this up carefully." It took them 2 days to uncover what the drill had found. When they finally cleared away the last of the dirt and rocks, everyone on the work site gathered around to stare in amazement. It was an egg. But not like any egg they had ever seen. This thing was huge, almost as tall as a man, and it glowed with soft blue light. The surface looked like it was made of crystal, but when Jake touched it, it felt warm and smooth like living skin. "Should we call Earth?" Kesha asked nervously. "Definitely," Tony replied, already reaching for his communication device. But before he could make the call, the egg started to crack. Thin lines appeared across its surface, glowing brighter than the rest. Everyone stepped back as the cracks grew wider and strange sounds came from inside. "Is something trying to get out?" asked Maria, one of the younger miners. They got their answer quickly. The egg split open with a sound like breaking glass, and what emerged made everyone gasp. It was unlike anything in their science books or movies. The creature was enormous, with a long neck and powerful legs. Its scales shifted colors from deep purple to bright silver, depending on how the light hit them. 2 massive wings folded against its back, and its eyes glowed like golden fire. When it looked at the humans there was intelligence there. Ancient intelligence. "I am Theron of the Drakmarie," the creature spoke, though its mouth didn't move. The words appeared directly in their minds. "I have slept for many centuries." Jake's legs felt weak. He had dreamed about meeting aliens his whole life, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The dragon, because that's what it clearly was, stood 20 feet tall and radiated power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The dragon looked around at all the humans, studying each face carefully. Then, without explanation, it began walking toward the residential section of the colony. Its massive feet left deep prints in the ground, but it moved with surprising grace. "Should we try to stop it?" whispered Carlos, the security chief. "With what?" Tony replied. "That thing could probably crush our entire security force without breaking a sweat." The dragon made its way through the colony streets while people came out of their homes to watch. Children pointed and stared with wonder, while adults grabbed their families and backed away. The dragon paid no attention to any of them. It seemed to be looking for something specific. It found what it was seeking at a small house near the colony's center. Inside, a young couple named David and Lisa were caring for their baby son, Jerome. The infant was only 8 months old, barely able to sit up on his own. The dragon stopped outside their home and lowered its great head. David grabbed his wife and child, ready to run, but the dragon made no threatening moves. "I mean no harm," Theron said into their minds. "May I see the child?" Something in the dragon's mental voice made David hesitate. There was gentleness there and sadness, as if the creature had been lonely for a very long time. Against every instinct screaming at him to run, David stepped forward with baby Jerome in his arms. The dragon moved slowly, carefully, until its massive head was level with the infant. Jerome reached out with tiny fingers, showing no fear. He touched the dragon's snout, and in that moment, everything changed. Theron's golden eyes widened with something that looked like joy and relief. The dragon spoke one word that would start a war across the galaxy: "Sun." A pulse of energy spread out from that touch, racing across space faster than light. On distant worlds, other sleeping dragons felt it and began to stir. In the halls of the Galactic Council, alarms started ringing as sensors detected the awakening of powers that had been dormant for thousands of years. But in that small house on planet Hope, a dragon had found what it had been searching for through centuries of sleep. A species worthy of partnership. A family worth protecting. And a future worth fighting for. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within hours of baby Jerome touching the dragon, emergency meetings were happening on dozens of different worlds. The Galactic Council, made up of alien species that had ruled space for thousands of years, was not happy about what they heard. On Earth, President Rodriguez sat in the Situation Room, staring at reports that seemed impossible to believe. "You're telling me a dragon called a human baby its son?" she asked her advisors. "That's exactly what happened, Madam President," replied General Hayes, the head of Earth's Space Defense Forces. "And it gets worse. Our long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures across the galaxy. It looks like other dragons are waking up." The president rubbed her temples. "How many other dragons are we talking about?" "We don't know yet. Could be dozens. Could be hundreds." Meanwhile, on Planet Hope, baby Jerome was changing in ways that amazed and frightened his parents. At 8 months old he should barely be crawling. Instead, he was walking around their small home, pointing at objects and saying words that sounded like no human language anyone had ever heard. "David, this isn't normal," Lisa whispered to her husband as they watched their son stack blocks in patterns that looked almost mathematical. The dragon Theron spent most of his time near their house, though he was careful not to scare the other colonists. When Jerome cried, Theron would hum a low musical sound that immediately calmed the baby. When Jerome was hungry, he would eat foods that should have been too advanced for an infant. "He's growing faster than he should," Dr. Patricia Kim explained to the worried parents. She was the colony's only doctor, and she had never seen anything like this. "His brain activity is off the charts. It's like the dragon's presence is accelerating his development." But Jerome wasn't the only human experiencing changes. Across the galaxy, other dragons were waking up and choosing humans of their own. On the farming world of New Kenya, a woman named Grace was tending her crops when a massive shadow fell across her fields. She looked up to see a dragon with scales that sparkled like diamonds descending from the sky. "You understand growth and patience," the dragon said in her mind. "You nurture life from nothing. You are worthy." Grace dropped her watering can and stared in shock as the dragon landed gently in her field, careful not to damage her plants. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You will," the dragon replied. "My name is Crystal Wing. I choose you as my partner." In the military sector of Mars Colony, Commander Blake was reviewing security reports when alarms started blaring throughout the base. A dragon had appeared just outside the main gate, its scales crackling with what looked like lightning. "I am Stormclaw," the dragon announced to the assembled soldiers. "I seek the one called Blake. Your courage in battle has caught my attention." Blake walked out to meet the dragon, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon before stopping. Something about the creature's presence made him feel calm rather than threatened. "What do you want from me?" Blake asked. "Partnership," Stormclaw replied. "The galaxy will soon need defenders unlike any it has known. Will you stand with me?" The Galactic Council was not pleased with these developments. The ruling species, lizard-like beings called the Saurians and insect-like creatures known as the Vex, had maintained order in the galaxy for centuries. They saw the awakening dragons as a threat to their power. "The dragons were extinct for good reason," hissed Council Leader Vexer during an emergency session. "They upset the natural order. And now they're bonding with humans, the most unpredictable species in known space. We must act quickly," agreed Saurian General Thax, his forked tongue flicking nervously. "Before these partnerships grow stronger." Ambassador Chin, Earth's representative to the Council, tried to defend humanity's position. "The dragons chose us. We didn't seek this out. Maybe we should try to understand what's happening before making any rash decisions." "Understand?" Vexer's compound eyes glittered with anger. "We understand perfectly. Humans are already chaotic enough. Give them dragon powers and they'll tear the galaxy apart." Back on Planet Hope, Jerome was now walking and talking like a child 3 times his age. He would sit with Theron for hours, and observers swear they could see images forming in the air between them, like the dragon was teaching the boy through some kind of shared vision. "He's learning things no human child should know," Lisa told David one evening as they watched Jerome arrange his toys in patterns that resembled star charts. "Maybe that's the point," David replied thoughtfully. "Maybe the dragons see something in us that we don't see in ourselves." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent broadcast from Earth. President Rodriguez appeared on every screen in the colony, her face grim. "My fellow humans," she began, "the Galactic Council has issued an ultimatum. We have 72 hours to surrender all dragon-bonded humans for what they call protective isolation, or they will consider us a hostile species and act accordingly. The room fell silent except for baby Jerome, who looked at the screen and spoke his first clear English sentence. "They're scared of what we might become." Theron's golden eyes glowed brighter as he listened to the broadcast. "The Council fears change," he said to everyone present. "They have ruled through force and rigid control for millennia. But the galaxy is about to face challenges that require adaptation, creativity, and courage. Qualities that humans possess in abundance." "What kind of challenges?" David asked. The dragon's expression grew somber. "Dangers from beyond this galaxy that the Council's rigid thinking cannot comprehend. That is why we chose to sleep until we found partners worthy of the trials ahead." As the ultimatum countdown began, more dragons continued awakening across human space. Each one chose a human partner based on qualities they valued: creativity, compassion, determination, or the ability to adapt under pressure. The galaxy was about to discover that humans and dragons together were far more powerful than anyone had imagined. And the Galactic Council's attempt to maintain their old order would soon trigger a war that would reshape everything. The 72-hour deadline was ticking down fast. President Rodriguez stood in the White House briefing room, looking tired but determined. Behind her, military advisors shuffled papers nervously while screens showed Galactic Council fleets moving toward human space. "I won't lie to you," she told the cameras broadcasting to billions of people across Earth and its colonies. "We're facing the biggest crisis in human history. They want us to give up our people who've bonded with dragons. They're calling it protective isolation, but we all know what that really means." On Planet Hope, David held his son Jerome close while Lisa packed their few belongings. The little boy was now talking like a 5-year-old despite being barely a year old. His eyes held wisdom that seemed far too old for such a young face. "Daddy, we don't have to be scared," Jerome said softly. "Theron says more of his family are waking up. They're choosing humans all over the galaxy." David looked out the window at the massive dragon resting near their home. Theron's head was raised as if listening to sounds only he could hear. "What's he doing?" "Talking to his brothers and sisters," Jerome explained matter-of-factly. "They're sharing what they've learned about us." It was true. Across human space, more dragons were emerging from their ancient sleep. On the industrial world of New Detroit, factory worker Antonio had been chosen by a dragon whose scales looked like polished steel. The dragon, who called himself Iron Wing, could somehow enhance the machines Antonio worked with, making them faster and more efficient than ever before. "I don't understand what's happening to me," Antonio told his wife Carmen as sparks literally flew from his fingertips when he touched machinery. "Yesterday I was just a regular guy fixing robots. Now I can make them work better just by thinking about it." Carmen watched her husband in amazement as he repaired a broken assembly line by placing his hands on it and concentrating. The dragon's influence was clearly changing him, giving him abilities no human had ever possessed. On the research station orbiting Jupiter, scientist Dr. Rachel Kim was experiencing her own transformation. The dragon who had chosen her, an elegant creature called Mindscale, seemed to enhance her intelligence in ways that defied explanation. "I'm seeing connections I never noticed before," she told her research team as she scribbled equations that made no sense to anyone else. "The dragons aren't just magical creatures. They're working with forces we haven't discovered yet. Physics we don't understand." But the Galactic Council wasn't waiting to see what these human-dragon partnerships might accomplish. Their fleets were already moving, and their first target wasn't Earth itself. They chose something easier, something that would send a message. The mining station at Proxima Centauri housed 300 humans who extracted rare minerals from asteroids. It was far from Earth, lightly defended, and perfect for demonstrating the Council's power. Station Commander Williams received the warning just minutes before the attack began. "All hands, this is not a drill. Council ships are approaching. Prepare for possible combat." But the mining station had no real weapons, just tools for breaking apart rocks. The workers could only watch helplessly as sleek alien warships surrounded their home. "Attention human facility," came a cold voice over the communication system. "By order of the Galactic Council, you are harboring dangerous elements. Surrender now or face the consequences." "We're just miners." Commander Williams replied desperately. "We don't have any dragons here. We're not a threat to anyone." The Council ships opened fire without another word. The mining station exploded in seconds, taking all 300 people with it. The destruction was broadcast across human space as a warning of what would happen to anyone who defied the Council. The attack changed everything. President Rodriguez's next speech was very different from her first one. "They didn't even give our people a chance to surrender," she said, her voice shaking with anger. 300 innocent miners killed just to prove a point. Well, they've proven something alright. They've proven that they see us as expendable. But humanity wasn't as helpless as the Council believed. The Dragon partnerships were growing stronger every day, and some of the bonded humans were developing abilities that surprised everyone. Captain Kelly Martinez of the Earth Defense Force found herself face-to-face with a dragon called Voidwing just hours after the Proxima attack. The dragon's scales seemed to absorb light, making it hard to look at directly. "Your people need defenders," Voidwing said in her mind. "I can give you the power to protect them, but you must be willing to change." "What kind of change?" Kelly asked. "The kind that will let you move your ships through space in ways your enemies cannot predict. The kind that will make you more than human but still human at your core." Kelly thought about the 300 people who had died at Proxima. Do it. The transformation was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Suddenly she could sense the locations of every ship in the solar system. More than that, she could feel the connections between different points in space, as if reality itself had become a map she could read. Similar transformations were happening to bonded humans everywhere. Engineer Carlos on Mars Station found he could build technology that shouldn't work according to known science. Teacher Maria on the Moon Colony discovered she could share knowledge directly with her students through some kind of mental link. But perhaps the most important development was happening with little Jerome on Planet Hope. The boy was now speaking in complete sentences about concepts that would challenge university professors. "The Council thinks in straight lines," he told a gathering of colonists and military officers who had come to see the famous dragon-bonded child. "They see problem, they apply force, problem goes away. But the universe doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have to go around problems or through them or make them into something else entirely." Theron nodded approvingly at his young partner. "The child speaks wisdom that comes from seeing with both human creativity and dragon sight." General Hayes, who had traveled from Earth to meet Jerome and Theron, was amazed by what he witnessed. "Are you saying we can actually fight the Council? They have thousands of ships and armies that have conquered entire star systems." Jerome smiled with the confidence of someone much older. "General, they have thousands of ships that all work the same way, fight the same way, think the same way. We have humans and dragons working together, and no two partnerships are exactly alike. They're bringing uniform force to a fight that needs creative solutions." The little boy pointed to the sky where Council ships were gathering for another attack. "Besides, they think they're fighting humans with some dragon help. They don't realize they're about to face something completely new. Something the galaxy has never seen before." As if to prove his point, Captain Martinez's ship suddenly appeared in orbit, having traveled from Earth in a fraction of the time it should have taken. Her partnership with Voidwing had let her fold space itself, bringing her vessel through dimensions the Council didn't know existed. The war was about to begin in earnest, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy that they were far from helpless. The first real battle of the war happened at New Terra, a peaceful farming colony that grew food for half a dozen nearby worlds. The Galactic Council thought it would be an easy target. They were wrong. Admiral Tyler Washington had been a career military officer for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for his partnership with the dragon Shadowwing. The massive creature's scales seemed to bend light around them, and when they worked together, Tyler could make entire fleets appear and disappear like ghosts. "Council ships incoming," reported Lieutenant Brooks from the bridge of Tyler's flagship. 50 vessels, all heavily armed. "They're demanding we surrender the dragon-bonded humans." Tyler looked out at the enemy fleet through the viewscreen, feeling completely calm despite being outnumbered 5-1. Shadowwing's presence in his mind was like having a wise, ancient friend whispering battle strategies that human military doctrine had never imagined. "All ships, this is Admiral Washington," he announced to his small defense fleet. "Remember what we learned in training. We're not just human anymore, and we're not just fighting with human tactics. Trust your dragon partners." The Council attack began exactly as Tyler expected. Their ships formed perfect geometric patterns, fired in coordinated volleys, and advanced in textbook military formation. It was impressive, disciplined, and completely predictable. "Now," Tyler whispered, and Shadowwing's power flowed through him. The human ships vanished from normal space, slipping into what Shadowwing called the Shadow Realm. To the Council fleet, it looked like the human defenders had simply disappeared. Panic spread through their ranks as their sensors showed empty space where enemy ships had been seconds before. Then Tyler's fleet reappeared inside the Council formation, their weapons already firing at point-blank range. Council ships exploded in brilliant flashes as they were caught completely off guard. Within minutes, the attack force was reduced to scattered debris. "Impossible," breathed Council Admiral Vexus from his command ship, the only vessel to escape the ambush. How did they do that? News of the victory spread quickly through human space, but it also reached the Council's ears. They realized they were facing something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Meanwhile, young Jerome was growing more powerful every day. Now physically appearing to be about 6 years old despite his actual age, he had become the communication center for all dragon-human partnerships across the galaxy. "I can feel them all," he told his parents as he sat in their small living room, his eyes glowing with the same golden light as Theron's. "Every human who's bonded with a dragon. We're all connected now." This connection proved crucial in the next major battle. When the Council sent a massive fleet to attack Earth itself, Jerome was able to coordinate the defense across multiple star systems simultaneously. Captain Lisa Torres commanded a patrol ship near Neptune when Jerome's voice suddenly filled her mind. "Lisa, you and Stormclaw need to be at these coordinates in 10 minutes. The main attack is coming." Lisa didn't question the 6-year-old child's tactical knowledge. Her dragon partner Stormclaw had taught her that age meant nothing when wisdom came from a source as ancient as the dragons themselves. "Stormclaw, can you get us there that fast?" she asked. The dragon's response came as a surge of electrical energy that supercharged her ship's engines. They crossed the solar system in minutes, arriving just as the Council's main fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. But they weren't alone. Jerome had coordinated the movements of dozens of dragon-human teams, positioning them perfectly to surround the attacking force. What should have been a surprise attack on humanity's home world became a trap that caught the Council completely off guard. The battle was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human ships moved through space in ways that defied physics, appearing behind enemy vessels and striking before vanishing again. Dragon fire, enhanced by human technology, burned through Council shields like they were paper. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez had partnered with a dragon called Forgewing, and together they had created weapons that combined human engineering with dragon magic. His ship's guns fired energy beams that could change direction mid-flight, chasing enemy vessels around asteroids and through debris fields. "This is impossible," Captain Torres heard a Council officer say over an intercepted communication. "Their weapons are following our ships. How do you dodge a bullet that can turn corners?" But perhaps the most amazing partnership was between Dr. Rachel Kim and her dragon Heelwing. While other teams focused on destroying enemy ships, Rachel and Heelwing worked to save lives on both sides. They could somehow reach into damaged vessels and heal injured crew members, regardless of their species. "Why are you helping us?" asked a wounded Saurian officer after Rachel's team rescued him from his destroyed ship. "Because war should be about stopping aggression, not killing everyone who disagrees with us," Rachel replied simply. "Your leaders started this fight, but that doesn't mean you have to die for their mistakes." Word of Rachel's mercy spread through the Council fleets, causing some crews to question why they were fighting humans who would risk their lives to save enemy soldiers. The turning point came when Jerome made contact with the Council's command ship directly. His psychic abilities, amplified by Theron and the network of all bonded humans, allowed him to speak into the minds of every alien commander simultaneously. "This war doesn't have to continue," the child's voice echoed in hundreds of alien minds across the battlefield. "We're not your enemies. We never were. The dragons chose us because they saw something coming that will threaten all of us." "What are you talking about, human child?" demanded Council Leader Vexer, his usual arrogance shaken by having his thoughts invaded. Jerome's response chilled every listener. "Something from outside our galaxy. Something that makes our current fight look like children arguing over toys. The dragons have been sleeping, waiting for partners who could adapt and grow fast enough to face this threat. We're not trying to conquer you. We're trying to prepare for what's coming." As if summoned by his words, long-range sensors across the battlefield suddenly detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Ships the size of moons were crossing the void between galaxies, heading straight for inhabited space. The Council fleet stopped firing. Human ships held their positions. Everyone stared at their sensors in stunned silence as they realized that their petty war had just become irrelevant. "Those are the Devourers," Theron's ancient voice reached every mind on the battlefield. "We have little time to prepare. The question now is whether we face them as enemies fighting each other, or as allies fighting together." The war between humans and the Galactic Council was about to end, but a much larger conflict was just beginning. The massive alien ships approaching from outside the galaxy were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. They were the size of small moons, dark and twisted, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light itself. When they moved, space around them rippled like water, and stars in their path simply vanished. Jerome, now appearing as a 10-year-old boy but speaking with the wisdom of ages, stood before a gathering that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. Human admirals sat next to Saurian generals. Vex scientists worked alongside human engineers. The species that had been trying to kill each other were now forced to work together. The Devourers have destroyed entire galaxies, Jerome explained, his young voice carrying the weight of Theron's ancient memories. They don't conquer or negotiate. They consume everything in their path and move on to the next target. Council leader Vexer, his pride clearly wounded by having to listen to a human child, asked the question everyone was thinking. If they're so powerful, how are we supposed to stop them? Theron's massive form shifted behind Jerome as the dragon answered. Individually, none of our species could survive what approaches. But the Devourers have never faced opponents who could truly work together. They expect rigid hierarchies and predictable responses. That is why we chose humans as partners. What's so special about humans? Demanded Saurian General Thax, his forked tongue flicking with irritation. It was Admiral Tyler Washington who answered, stepping forward with his dragon partner Shadowwing beside him. We adapt. When we encounter something new, we don't just try to overpower it with the same old tactics. We learn, we improvise, we find new ways to solve problems. More than that, added Dr. Rachel Kim, humans naturally form bonds across species lines. Look around this room. How many of you have ever worked with aliens from other races before this crisis? The silence was telling. The Galactic Council had maintained order through separation and hierarchy. Each species stayed in their designated role, following rules that hadn't changed in centuries. But humans bond with dragons, work with Saurians, share technology with the Vex, Jerome continued. We don't see differences as barriers. We see them as tools we can use together. The proof came during the first battle with the Devourers. Their lead ship entered the outer solar system, and immediately every piece of technology in the area began malfunctioning. Human computers crashed, Saurian weapon systems failed, and even dragon magic seemed dampened. They're using some kind of disruption field, reported Captain Lisa Torres from her ship near Pluto. Everything we normally rely on is either dead or barely working. But then something unexpected happened. Engineer Carlos Rodriguez, working with his dragon partner Forgewing and a team of Vex technicians, discovered that their combined abilities could adapt to the alien interference. The Devourers are jamming our individual technologies, Carlos explained over the emergency communication channel. But when we combine human creativity with dragon power and Vex precision, we're creating something they haven't encountered before. The mixed teams began achieving things that should have been impossible. Human intuition guided dragon magic through problems that Vex logic helped solve with mathematical precision. Ships that had been dead in space suddenly roared back to life, but now they worked in ways none of the species had imagined on their own. Captain Torres found herself commanding a ship that phased in and out of dimensions while firing weapons that bent space itself. Her human creativity, Stormclaw's lightning powers, and modifications suggested by Saurian engineers had created a vessel that fought like a living storm. I've never seen anything like this, breathed a Vex observer. The tactical possibilities are expanding exponentially. But the real breakthrough came from the most unlikely source. Jerome, sitting in a command center that had been hastily built to accommodate beings of all sizes, suddenly began speaking in a voice that carried hope. I can feel them, he said, his eyes glowing brighter than ever. The Devourers. They're not just destroyers. They're hungry. Desperately hungry for something they lost long ago. What do you mean? Asked President Rodriguez, who had come to personally oversee humanity's role in the new alliance. Jerome closed his eyes, reaching out with psychic abilities that now connected him not just to dragons and humans, but to willing volunteers from every species present. They used to be like us. Different species working together. But something went wrong. They lost their ability to truly cooperate, and now they consume other civilizations trying to fill that emptiness. Theron's ancient voice rumbled with understanding. They are what we could become if we fail to maintain our bonds. Then we don't fight them, Jerome said suddenly. We show them what they used to be. The idea was crazy enough that it might work. Instead of meeting the Devourers with pure force, the Alliance did something unprecedented. They opened communication channels and invited the alien destroyers to witness something the galaxy had never seen before. Dragons worked with humans to create art that painted pictures in space itself. Saurian warriors shared battle songs with human soldiers while Vex scientists collaborated with dragon wisdom keepers to solve mathematical puzzles that had puzzled civilizations for millennia. The Devourer ships slowed their advance as if confused by this response. We know what you're looking for, Jerome broadcast to the alien fleet, his message carried by every dragon, translated by every species, and amplified by technology that combined the best of all their cultures. You're looking for what you used to have. The connection. The unity. The ability to be greater together than any of you could be alone. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy truly changed. The Devourer ships didn't attack. Instead, they sent a signal back. It was weak, distorted, as if coming from beings who had almost forgotten how to communicate rather than simply consume. "We remember," came the reply. "Show us the way back." And so began the greatest project in galactic history. Not a war but a healing. The alliance that had formed to fight the Devourers became something much greater. A true galactic community where species didn't just coexist, but actively helped each other grow and thrive. Humans found themselves at the center of it all, not as rulers but as bridges. Their natural ability to form connections with other species made them perfect ambassadors, coordinators, and mediators. Jerome, still physically a child but carrying the wisdom of ages, became the first galactic ambassador. His job wasn't to command or control, but to help different species understand each other and work together toward common goals. "The dragons were right to wait for us," he said during the ceremony that officially established the new galactic order. "Not because humans are better than anyone else, but because we're really good at seeing the best in others and helping them see it too." As he spoke, dragons flew overhead in formation with ships from a dozen different species. The Devourers had been welcomed back into galactic civilization, their hunger satisfied by rediscovering the connections they had lost. The war that started when a dragon whispered, "My son," to a human baby had ended with the entire galaxy becoming one enormous family. And at its heart were humans and dragons, proving that the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from bringing out the best in everyone around you.